What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MoviGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And this is The Acolyte, Season 1, Episode 4. It's your favorite show. It is everyone's favorite show. No one has any backlash on this at all, anywhere on the internet to find. Universally adored and loved. Clearly, everyone is on the same page. Last week, I did note space witches are stupid. It's a stupid concept. Star Wars in and of itself is unique enough. And then I started thinking to myself, but what if? Like, what if Star Wars just started making films that were like in the Star Wars universe, but were like other franchises? Like, what if they just started like being like, well, why couldn't there be like a Friday the 13th, but like in Star Wars? Why couldn't there be like an Independence Day, but in Star Wars? Like, why couldn't there be these franchises? But, like, you're using Star Wars characters and, like, the Force and, like, Jedi, and you're figuring out how to make, these typical plots. But with Jedi and Star Wars characters on planets. I did realize I was kind of dumb, but some of the ideas really made me giggle. I was like, so what if, like, the Meg... was it? Like, it's really a rabbit hole, like, when you start thinking about it. So it's like Space Witches opens the door for, like, space zombies. So what if the Jedi, like, land on a planet and it's like The Walking Dead? Like, there are a couple people that just, they're the random, they can't, like, aliens and stuff, and they can't use the Force, and they're just trying to avoid the space zombies. It's just very hilarious to me, the whole thing. But in episode 4, we're back, and I have to say the audio description is exceptional. It's not something I've really talked about because I've been focused a lot on character introductions and combat sequences and little details. But in episode 4, we're establishing this planet with the trees, and there's that like weird bulbous thing that she touches for like a second and then like scatters up the tree, and you're like, oh my god, what the fuck just happened? Like, get me out of here. There's some more stuff that is just really well described, but what I really loved is the wipes, because we so rarely, I'm such a big fan, as being somebody who could see and now cannot, I'm such a big advocate for how do we get the art of cinema in there, and not just like a play-by-play of what's happening in the plot, but actually like style choices, director style choices. And the fact that we're getting like wipes diagonally, wipes right to left or left to right, I can't remember which wipe that was, but the fact that I'm getting stuff like that the scenes are coming in that way, and that's how we're transitioning, those are really interesting, because it's not integral to the plot of the story, but it's very Star Wars. So if you were trying to explain to somebody what Star Wars was, if I have a kid and the Acolyte is like one of their new things because they're watching Disney Plus and they're like, oh my god, Star Wars, I want to get into it. Dad! I'm going to be like, well, first, you need to watch the original films before you watch literally anything else. I don't care how cute Grogu is. You're going to get through at least Return of the Jedi before you ever see what Grogu does. At least through the first three, the original trilogy. Done. But after that, part of what makes Star Wars films is they do have stuff like that. They do have the wipes and the, we come in from one angle to another. And it's nice to get there. It's nice to have that in there. I've always talked about, like, how do I explain to somebody what makes Wes Anderson? Because he clearly has such a visual style, like a very distinct style for anybody who's seen his work. Now that I'm blind, I'm like, I don't know what to really tell people. Like, I can kind of try to describe it, but for people who are Wes Anderson fans, they know that there's a certain je ne sais quoi that he has. So it's nice that we're getting some of the nuts and bolts of the Star Wars, what makes a Star Wars film and or series, whether you like it or not, there are certain things that make it work, and they're including that in the Acolyte, and I like that. So, but yeah, we're after the Space Witches episode, and they've reported back to the council. I get a little bit leery whenever we report back to a council and there's like a leadership position and that person's like feels like at all resistant and isn't just like, yeah, we need to find this, get up on this, get in there, join the fight, let's do this, kick some butt. And they're like, I don't know, is this the right call? I feel like maybe we shouldn't be doing this. It's sort of like, for anybody who watched Halo this past season, that new dude they introduced that was in there that was like rising through the obviously was never going to be good for the Spartans. Like, I mean, he was so obvious from day one. Like, he spoke like 3 words and I was like, villain. Like, I just, villain. This guy's gonna just be incredibly detrimental to the Spartans. And I'm starting to pick up this vibe from every time that they go back and they talk to this councilwoman who I've heard is one of like the existing characters who has some sort of backstory if you've read enough Star Wars books. Which is where they got the Acolyte from. Apparently, I'm learning as we go along where the Acolyte is coming from is sort of like an obscure block of books that hardcore Star Wars fans read, but most people did not. So I guess this character exists within the realm and is somebody who is good, defined as being a good guy, but also seems to be sort of hesitant, resistant, and without enough character development. We don't really know why. So, and since we just came from episode 3 where the future was female, she's female, I kind of wonder if there's like a tie there to like what happened with camp girl power. I don't know what were they called. Like, did they have the witches? feels so weird to just say like the witches, the dark witches, the spirit women. I have no idea what to call them, but Planet of Women, which sounds like a porno, but that's what they were. It was just the Jedi rolled up on a place full of women. Anyway, so yeah, there is that connection. So I'm wondering whether or not that person is maybe connected to Coral, who I'm fairly certain is behind that mask. The only reason you mask a character is because we've seen them before. Masks are cool, but they always hide something that we've seen before. Typically. I mean, yeah, okay, so Darth Vader wore a mask the very first time and we hadn't seen him before, technically, outside of the mask. But it played in great in the prequels, didn't it? Because then we did know what Anakin looked like, so... yeah. Anyway, it's generally... it's, wearing a mask is to help cover up the fact that we probably would recognize who this is. I just don't know why it would be a random person either. Like, who is this person that just, saved May from this fall? That just happened to be there? What random person, especially if it's a guy, like what random guy was just there? It was just like, I got you on this planet of women. I've been hanging out by myself, chilling down here. Maybe there's a mystery, I don't know, but I just have a strong feeling that it's Coral because we didn't really see what happened to all those people in episode 3. They just kind of came out like everybody was dead. I'm like, well, May didn't set them all on fire. That definitely did not just happen. Somebody did this, and I don't remember in the audio description anybody being like, and as O'Shea leaves, she looks over and sees Coral dead, very dead. I think it's Coral. So, for anybody who's like, because everybody's theorizing right now on the internet, I've seen the dark, the Sith Lord Jar Jar theory is popping up again. I wonder if that would make people like the Acolyte more if somebody had the balls to actually try to pull that off, or if it would just make the show sillier at this point. Like, if it turned out that that was Jar Jar, like, where would your head be at with that? You know, if they really did, if they were like, guys, there's this really cool fan theory online. We should try it. We should make an entire series around Dark Jar Jar. Just totally flip the character on its head. Um, so I doubt it. just I doubt it, but it's funny that that's getting brought up again. So yeah, I I don't really know what this creature was that was sniffing, but I like Pip. I think Pip is the most interesting thing that's on the show. This little robot that O'Shea carries around at this point is they're good at making droids that are adorable and have a lot of personality. Regardless of what Star Wars show you're working on, there's a pretty memorable droid in it. You know, I feel that way about Rogue One. I like the droid that was in Rogue One. I like from the Mandalorian season 1, Mandalorian. Remember that guy? This was great. Obviously BB-8, great. You know, C-3PO, R2-D2. I mean, we're good at making really personable droids, and that's working here. Pip is easily rising the ranks of being the most, like, the one thing that people are going to remember about the Acolyte, I think. I kind of feel like there are 4 people walking around in this Team Jedi, and someone's going to die at some point, or end up being secretly evil, because it's a lot of people. Usually we don't send, like, a squad where they all survive. It's just not... I mean, if anything, Rogue One is, like, the greatest example for what happens when people squad up. They all die. Everyone. The whole planet. Everyone dies. So, squatting up doesn't necessarily mean anything. Also, another reason I think it's Coral is because the move that they did, where they did the thrust and throw everybody back or whatever, really seemed like the same move that they were being taught in episode 3. It seemed like a more master version of that, where they were like, they were sweeping, they were doing that sweeping motion thing in episode 3. So I really think it's Coral. I think it's gonna be like the least surprising reveal ever. Take off their mask and be like, Coral. What? Plus they threw Osha out of the way, and then blasted the others. So, like, there's clearly an intention there of, like, well, let me protect Osha from what's about to happen, and then let me fuck these other people up. So, I know everybody hates this show. I'm finding it entertaining. I think when I came in tight, I was really interested in conceptually in May, and in this idea that she was on a mission to kill Jedi, and she was doing it in this, like, weird way, and that interests me. That's been watered down tremendously, and we've gotten some drama, so I'm kind of not as impressed. I'm still, even with the premiere of the episode, I still think Mandalorian was the best show we've had, and they haven't quite been able to get it back together. I don't think Acolyte is the worst show, though, that we've had, but I think, you know, we're 4 episodes in, 3 of the 4 Jedi are dead. I don't know necessarily how quickly we plan on wrapping this story up, but there's only one Jedi left at this point to kill, and he seems kind of important and integral to the story. So I don't know what the next couple episodes are going to look like, and how we're going to slow it down, what the next battle is. It's an interesting place to cut off, because they're sort of like mid-battle too. You know, we didn't really see, it didn't really, like, leave us with, like, you know, knocks them all off their feet, everybody's unconscious, bleeding from the head, so and so died. It wasn't like that. It was just like, and then it was like cut to black. Just okay. So I by the way, this whole time I think that dude's still hanging upside down. I think he's still in the trap, and is anybody gonna rescue Manny Jacinto before he goes to the good place or the bad place? Do they have a good or bad place in Star Wars? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Because if you don't know where Manny Jacinto is from, the actor who plays the character that's annoyingly just following me around for, I'm sure, some reason, but he has no discernible skill set, really, that we've seen, other than the ability to, like, concoct a potion that killed somebody. So I don't really know what he is that he does, but he apparently knows how to, like, cut through the forest. And then she ditches him and leaves him in a trap. But Manny Jacinto would make an awful villain because he's too goofy. It just is way too goofy. I already, like, I was thinking about that when he was in the conversation. I was like, what if he's actually the master and he's following her around to keep tabs? And I was like, no, that's stupid, because he's the worst actor to pick for that. To pick for the master. I mean, good diversion tactics by picking somebody who's completely unlike the thing that you need, but at the same time, I don't buy Manny Jacinto in that role at all. So if you love The Good Place, hopefully you at least appreciate the fact that Manny Jacinto is still getting work at what I would say like a high-profile level. This is still a high-profile show, so it's good for him to be getting that level of work. I wish they would use Daphne Keane more. Like, I need Daphne Keane to be doing more. She needs to be... I need, like, an episode where Daphne Keane just, like, rips some shit apart and just goes... She's way too talented to be in the role that she's in and getting lost and left behind. It's very disappointing. Those are my thoughts thus far on The Acolyte. Feel free to troll below in the comments and let me know. I know you want to. Blame it on Kathleen Kennedy, woke Disney. What else do we got going on right now? I don't know. Pick your pick your poison and sound off in the comments with how your everything that you love has been ruined. I'd really love to know at what point the last thing was, though, that you liked. Because I see a lot of videos that are very anti-Disney, anti-everything Disney. Everything. Inside Out 2 is like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, and there are people who are on... I haven't reviewed it yet. I plan on doing it. There are people that I've seen in the comment section attacking critics who are giving it a positive review. So, what was the last Disney thing that you liked? Because if you're going to attack current Disney, there has to be a line that was drawn somewhere along the way. If you say Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I'm going to slap you. Because there's no way that you've been holding a grudge since before you were born. Like, the likelihood that you were alive when that movie came out, and that you're online trolling people right now because nothing has ever lived up to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, is stupid. So, at some point, Disney went downhill for you. But what was that? Like, what time period? Like, what was the last thing you remember liking from Disney? Put that in the comments. The last time I liked Disney was blank. Was this show? Was this movie? What was it? At what point did Disney suddenly go off the rails for you? Because I think that's important, because if you're going to come in and constantly blast things and act like this is like a new trend, well, then what was the old trend? What was it that you liked before? What was the thing? Because I've seen people making sort of the same comments about this for people who are like, with Star Wars, it's like, well, what was the last Star Wars thing that you liked? Because arguably everything has been poorly reviewed since the original trilogy. So you've been an original fan, consistently watching, except for maybe like The Mandalorian. But again, I'm sure somebody's going to be like, well, that's new Disney, so that doesn't count. But virtually everything else, I mean, the prequel trilogy was not well received. It's weird that it's getting sort of like a resurgence where people are like looking back on it now and they're like, wow, we really just we were unfair to this prequel trilogy back in the day. It's like they're trying to be nice to it, but at the time, you know, not well received. There's a reason why it was basically the last thing Eric Lloyd did. So, and obviously nobody likes J.J. Abrams' stuff. I see that all the time. So you've been consistently watching a franchise producing stuff that has never lived up to the original. Why? If you're just a Star Wars fan, why? And then if you're not a Star Wars fan and you're a broader Disney fan, well, again, what was the last thing that you liked? So I'm genuinely curious. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. It's a hard word. I don't know. This episode was more interesting than Space Witches. In general, I don't know. I'll give it an A-. I think the days of me giving this show just like a straight up A are probably over. I still like the show. I'm still engaged. I like the actors in the show. That's the thing. This show has a really great cast too. But sadly, I don't have high hopes for us sticking the landing because of witches. I think it's gonna go back into more witchcraft, and it's just gonna piss me off. I think witches in the thing you're doing is already cool. You don't need to bring witchcraft into it. The Force is cool enough. The Force was fine enough for the original trilogy to launch all of those fans, to have people like lining up the side of theaters and buying toys, and there were no witches. We didn't need them. Lightsabers were cool enough. The Force was cool enough. I don't know why we felt like we needed to add witchcraft into Star Wars. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the other side.